Hello! So excited to be here as part of the Global Summit from Practically Perfect PA. I'm super excited. There's so much that I would love to tell you about coaching, about well-being, about how your well-being impacts your professional growth and your professional well-being. So I've put together a 3-part short video series, of which this is the first video. I hope you'll enjoy it. For this first video, we're going to talk about boundaries. The reason I start with boundaries is because to me it really is the basis, the foundation of any work that you do. It's very simple if you think about it. Unless you know what belongs to you, what belongs to others, and you put a really clear line around it, it's very hard for you to do any self-improvement, any personal development, because it becomes very easy to go into this self-talk of, oh, but so said that, and so did that, and that impacted me, and so made me feel. And what we really want to do is to take ownership. This is what empowers us. We take ownership of what belongs to us and we work on that. And this is how we grow. Simple, right? Once you put it into the practice, it's a little bit more tricky. If you've done any personal growth work, you probably know this. But it's super exciting. I absolutely love it. I've been doing this work for many years and now as a professional coach, and I just love it. I think everyone should go through any of these processes at any point in their life or continuously, because this is one of the reasons we came here, to become better people. This is my belief. So again, coming back to boundaries, why do we do boundaries? We need to understand what belongs to us and what belongs to others, and we put a line in between. Simple. So in this video, we're going to work on a couple of exercises to help you identify these boundaries. But to begin with, I want to know what you currently think about boundaries. So I'm going to ask you to reflect a little bit on that. This video is about 20 minutes long, but I do hope you'll allow for more time to work through the exercises. So maybe allow yourself about 40 minutes time. If you don't have it now, it's absolutely fine. Maybe come back later. Do not just skip through. You're not going to get the same value out of it, all right? So if you're ready to go, please take pen and paper, just a couple of pieces of paper, because we'll do several exercises, and some pencils, some pens, some colors, whatever color you'd like to work with. Be creative. This is your space. And it's important to have fun when we have those exercises, because otherwise sometimes it gets a little bit, not so nice. So let's start with the first exercise. First, I wanted to reflect about what you believe about boundaries right now. So take this piece of paper and write down. First question, what are boundaries for you? What do you believe they are? How do you understand them? How do you see them? Have you identified any boundaries? What's it all about for you? All right, this is the first question. What are boundaries for you? Second question, how do you feel about boundaries? Maybe when I started talking about boundaries, you were like, oh my God, yes, I really need to know about this. Or maybe you were like, is this chick crazy? Like, what is she talking about? I don't want to know anything about it. And anything in between, and any sort of thoughts that came up, just write it down. How do you feel about boundaries? Like, maybe you're excited, maybe you're sad, maybe you're annoyed, maybe you're a bit like skeptical. I don't know. Whatever it is, write it down, okay? How do you feel about boundaries? All right. Third and last question, how do you communicate your current boundaries, or how do you currently communicate boundaries? So maybe you've got them super identified, maybe you're very clear on where you need to set those boundaries, but are you really communicating them? And if you are doing so, how is it working out for you? What's the challenge? What are your roadblocks, okay? If you've never thought about it, then, think about it now. Give yourself a couple of minutes to think, like, how would you like to communicate about boundaries? Or have you ever communicated your boundaries? Okay? So, like I said, third and last question, how do you currently communicate your boundaries? Got it? Amazing. I hope you enjoyed the exercise. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Just pause the video and I'll see you right back. Hello. I hope you took my advice and you did pause the video and you took whatever time you needed to do the exercise. Maybe you got it done in 5 minutes, maybe you needed 20, and maybe you need a whole hour. It really doesn't matter. It's about you taking your time to get to know yourself, get to ask those questions that we too often just kind of go about our lives and don't spend time thinking about. And yet, you'll see in a minute that you do use boundaries, or you do need boundaries in your day-to-day. We just sort of forget about it, okay? So once you've started to think about it, what's come up? Like if we're having a conversation, I would love to hear from you, and maybe we can do that in the live Q&A. But it's important that you take that time again to read through what you've written and go, oh my God, I didn't think about that before, or maybe this is new, or maybe I didn't expect this to come up. This is always how these exercises go, right? Like we sort of pull it out of our heads, and then we look at it, and then we go, okay, what happened, And it's a great way to, again, self-know yourself, like get to know yourself. For many of us, and I'm included, and I know that there'll be a few of you in the audience, when we need to start talking about boundaries, it becomes really hard. It becomes that kind of thing that you keep yourself thinking like, do I really need this? Do I really want this? This sounds, very confrontational, and it happens especially to women. I don't believe we've been very well educated in that, and our energy, the feminine energy, tends to be a little bit softer, not as direct or as aggressive or strong as we usually understand the masculine energy. So a lot of times, especially in jobs like personal assistants, for example, when you're working in a highly pressured environment, surrounded potentially by men, potentially you're a woman and your boss is a man, those sort of energies play a part, and that's why it's so important that we need to know where the boundaries are. How do we communicate them? And I'm not talking about like crazy things, I'm talking about, how do I tell my boss I can't stay late tonight? How do I tell my boss that, he had to tell me this earlier because now I don't have enough time to do it? It's really little things that might be happening in your day-to-day, and then it's little things with yourself. How do you set boundaries with yourself? Because in this last year especially, a lot of people, and I've had a few cases in my one-to-one coaching where people don't really know how to separate life and work, and again, especially women, because we have this sort of duty to care, duty to do. But at 11 p.m. on any given day, it's not a time to answer an email. No one's going to do anything about it unless you're emailing, I don't know, China, the States. I'm lost here. But, like it really there has to be a reason why you're answering that email. Otherwise, you should have a boundary within yourself that says, no, I'm not answering emails at 11 p.m. because there's no need to. Right? And I need to feel strong enough, and I need to feel powerful enough that I can tell this to my boss, man or woman, me being a man or woman, it really doesn't matter. I need to be confident that I can say, look, I'm going to stop answering emails from this time on because that's my private time. And we have struggled this last year. So I really want you to think about all those times where this has happened, and let's see how we can fix that. Let's see how we can make your life more balanced, more healthy, and set those healthy boundaries. All right? So after all this chit chat, I want you to pull another piece of paper, and I want you to do another exercise, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorites. I think it's incredibly adaptive to whatever you want to work with, and there's so much information that comes out of it. So again, find your piece of paper, find your pen, and I'll give you some notes, and then we'll take some time for you to run the exercise, right? So for now, just write down 5 columns. Actually, we'll need 7, so leave some space on the right-hand side. The first 5 columns, we're going to write down situation, description, reaction, thoughts, and feelings. So now what I want you to do is to think back to maybe the last month, maybe the last 3 months, maybe the last year, and think about those situations when you felt maybe angry, maybe upset, maybe something just wasn't quite right, maybe something just wasn't sitting well with you, with the situation. and you weren't quite happy with how you responded. That's how we know a boundary was crossed. This is how we know that something happened there that it just, that just wasn't right. And this is, like the simple description of boundary that I usually use. Like boundaries in short are the limits between what's important for you and what's important for the others, or what's needed by you and what's needed by others. So let's say I need my afternoon off because I need to go to the doctor's, and my boss needs me at work because they need me to finish a report. That's where the lines come in. If I didn't have anything to do, he wants me to stay, then that's fine. I stay, I do the work. But if I need to go to the doctor, I need to be able to express my necessity, that I need to go to the doctor, and therefore I need to leave half an hour early. And I'm going to be able to do your report, but I need that half an hour so I can make my appointment. Yeah? Do you start to see how this rolls out, hopefully? So let's continue with our exercise. I'll give you an example so you get a bit more of an idea of how this should work. So let's say in an example situation, my boss is asking me to stay late. I know it's a very classical one. It's a very typical one, and it's changed a little bit in the last year. But I think it's still a very typical case that we've all lived through, and it just exemplifies really well what I'm trying to teach you here. So let's say my boss asked me to stay late. This would be the situation. I would just write, boss asked me to stay late. Yeah? Very short description of what happened. Next column, you're going to write a description. A little bit of the context. What was happening? What was playing around? Okay? So in my case, for example, I could say, it's 7 p.m. I was about to leave the office. I was packing up my things. And then my boss came to me and told me, you have to stay late. You have to finish this report and I need it for the next day. Right? This would be my description. On our third column, reaction. In my example, I would say something like, I cursed internally and pressed my lip angrily, unpacked and stayed. So again, it's about breaking down those pieces of the puzzle that completed the situation, right? If I just say, my boss constantly asked me to stay late, it's not very fair. We need to analyze the situation. My boss asked me to stay late, it was at this time, and what was my reaction, right? So we continue to unpack the situation. My reaction is what I actually did. It's not what I thought about, it's not what I thought I wanted to do, it's what I actually did. That was my reaction. I could have said nothing to him and just cursed internally, pressed my lip, and went and did the work. In the next column, thinking or thoughts, I could have said something like, I can't believe this. It's the third time this week that I'm staying late. This last minute request really have to stop. Like I have to cancel my dinner plans now. This is outrageous. I'm really annoyed. I can't believe this is happening to me. This is all the story that's going through my head. So shorten it somehow and just write it down. What's your thinking when this thing happened? Okay, again, let's try to be precise and unpack the specific situation. In the last column, feelings, this is where we write what we actually felt. So I might be thinking that I'm angry, that this is outrageous, but actually I felt offended because my boss assumed that I had nothing else to do and that I had to cancel my dinner plans for him out of nowhere. It's like, this is unfair. I don't like this, okay? And I'm feeling very offended that I didn't even get asked, like, do you have time to stay, for example? So I'm giving you, again, all the steps so you can start to see how your situations would break down, and hopefully the example helps. So those are the 5 first columns, covered them well. Now, in the last column, once you've completed everything, and again, we're trying to identify where your boundaries were broken or where they were pushed. So just really try to think of any situation where you just felt a little bit angry or anxious or annoyed and write it down. Unpack it like we just did with my example. All right? Try to do 3 to 5 situations. If you've got more, then that's fine. Less than 3, not ideal, because we really want to see what's going on across different situations. Okay? So once you've done the first 5 columns, I want you to go back and look at how can you identify a value that was important for you, and that's what was crossed. So again, for my particular example, the value part would be something like the respect for my private and personal time, right? This is the value that was pushed, or was this request was going against when this happened. All right, fantastic. I hope you did take the time. It's a super powerful exercise, like I said. And as you've probably started to see, there's some patterns that emerge. And if you have the values, they might start to resonate quite similar to one another. Like one might be about respect of my personal time, one might be respect of my private life. Like maybe a colleague asked me about my weekend and about why did I not go out with my husband or whatever it happened, and I might be offended about, like, I don't want to share this personal information. So maybe you need a very clear boundary around your private time. You really value your private time being private. Okay, so this is where we start to see those patterns, and this is how we start to analyze and understand what's running behind the reaction. Because another reaction, I didn't share this before, but another possible reaction to my boss asking me to stay late is me getting fully angry and sort of like, like dropping the bag and just kicking the keyboard as if there was no tomorrow, and just showing that I was really, really angry. But that's not the reaction that we want. We want to be professional. So to be professional, we need to understand ourselves. We need to understand what happens behind the curtain and how do we manage that. Yeah? Start to get me? All right. So once we've seen those similarities, once we start to understand those trends, those patterns that happened in our behavior, it helps us understand how we feel, what we value. And that's the essence of it, right? Because like we were saying at the beginning, there's what belongs to others and there's what belongs to us. And this is what we can work on, what belongs to us. Once we can define what belongs to us and belongs to others, we start to define our circle of influence. Our circle of influence is a very known term in coaching, because sometimes we get anxiety, we get stress, we get annoyed, we lose our power when we're paying more attention to what's happening outside the circle rather than what's happening inside the circle. So I might not be able to change my boss in asking me to stay late every night, but what can I do? Can I ask him to tell me earlier that he needs those reports? Can I, maybe if it's getting really bad, look for another job? Can I speak to HR? Can I, just assume that I'm going to stay late, so therefore not make plans? Like there's a gazillion types of answers that you could have to manage yourself. And this is what I want us to get into, right? How do I manage myself? How do I grow my circle of influence? If I have visibility on my boss's calendar, can I organize myself better to have the reports? Because even if he doesn't ask them to me, I know he needs them because I've been there for a while. I know the job. I know he needs the semester report for blah, 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 whatever needs to happen, right? And here's the thing. When my boss comes to me at 7 p.m. as I'm leaving the desk, if I've been able to forecast, to anticipate his need, I'm doing a fantastic job, because instead of staying late, I'll just say, it's in your inbox, sent it to you half an hour ago. He'll be absolutely, I'm saying he, might be a she, will be absolutely thrilled, and you'll be able to go home and have your dinner plans, whatever you wanted to do. All right. So this is how we manage those things. We self-manage, and then, people will sort of follow. Like if you are proactive, then people around you will continue to understand, this person doesn't answer emails at 11 p.m. So there's no need to email them at that time, for example. Yeah, it's little things like this that start to have the change. So now what I want you to do is go back to your sheet or your columns and add 2 more. I hope you've got room for them. And in the first one, I wanted to write, what would you like to have happened? Yes, that's your wish list. And in the second one, it's what's within your power. So those are your action points, okay? One is the wish list, one is homework. So they have to be pair in pair, okay? They have to go hand in hand. So in your wish list, yeah, it'd be fantastic if my boss would have told me last week, because I needed more time to complete that report and do it professionally and do it well. So what's within my power? What's within my power really is I can ask him, I can share with him in, for example, my weekly meeting that I know I have, to say, look, boss, I'm really sorry that this report maybe was a little bit rushed, maybe there were mistakes, or, on the other hand, like, I'm glad that I did help you and that things worked out well, but, it was the third time this week, and this, it's clashing with my personal life, which for me is very important. No matter what, let me just say this here. My personal life is important. It doesn't really matter if I've got 3 kids, 1 cat, or I'm a complete single person that just wants to go home and party with my friends, okay? Not a lot of party going on at the moment, but whatever you want to do. Maybe you want to sit back and watch Netflix or read a book, that's your choice. It's your private life. So the fact that we're sharing this is important for me, it doesn't mean, or it doesn't say that I need to justify that, okay? This is very, very important. So just reiterating here. So again, back to the example, what is within my power is, okay, I have this weekly meeting. I know I can speak with him, so I'm gonna choose to share, look, this is not okay. I need more time to do these reports. I really want to do a good job. So I'm sharing here, right? I'm not just asking for stuff. I'm sharing my concerns. I'm sharing that I want to do a good job and that my private life is important. And I put it all on the same plate. Not one thing is more important than the other. My work is important. I want to do a good job. I want to be a good assistant for you, but I can't do that and, ruin my personal life. Like, I really don't want this to happen. And I have to say, so many more companies are much more open to this life-work balance. So if there's been any moment in life where it was a good time to speak to your boss about this, this is it now, okay? So I encourage you to take time and go do that, okay? Find a space if it's happening to you, all right? If it's not, then congratulations. You might have another issue, okay? Like I was saying, I'm just using this as a very typical example because I know it's happened to many, many people. I know I'm the first one that's happened to, and it's just very easy to understand and relate to. So, first column, what would you like to have happened? Maybe I want my boss to ask me. Maybe I want the report to come a week earlier. And secondly, how I'm going to make it happen, really. I'm going to ask my boss next time, you need to tell me that you need this report a week in advance. It might not happen. This is the reality, okay? This is outside our circle of influence. They might choose, or a million reasons might happen, where your boss will ask you last minute again to do that report. But you've done your homework. You asked them, you exposed to them, this is my needs, this is how I do a good job, and this is how I bring value to the company, because if you've got more time, you can triple check the data, or you can bring ideas on how to do better next semester, whatever it is, right? And it's important that we tie those together, tie your needs to how the company will benefit from that, all right? This is how we flip our needs into the company. And this is how we utilize boundaries to be very clear about, I'm not a bad worker because I want to go home. Maybe you're a bad boss because you didn't tell me earlier, okay? But we need to communicate to improve me and you in our working relationship. All right, this is me for now. I hope this was super, super helpful. Like I said, I absolutely love this exercise. Take your time to complete the last 2 columns. Take your time to analyze how things have worked and how you could do better. And I do encourage you as well to maybe once a week, don't go crazy about this, but once a week, check back and go, how did I do this week with my boundaries, which values do I really want to see happen in my life that are currently not quite there, you know, like the privacy of my private life, or the difference or balance between life and work. Like, how am I making this communicated and clear for others to help me respect my personal time, my personal space, whatever it is. All right? If you've got any questions, or if you'd like to continue to work on the theme of boundaries or expanding on any personal area, I do one-on-one coaching, and I would love to see you there and continue to work with you. Have a great day.